Arizona football gets a new massive wide receiver commit, and this one might turn out to be the best player in the entire class.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The show is brought to you by Gametime. Check it out. All kinds of good stuff at Gametime. You know the deal. With Gametime, you can get last-minute tickets, concerts, games, you name it, they got it. Check it out, Gametime. Okay, now, Arizona gets a massive commitment from Muise Tenura. I'm Mike Luke from Locked On Wildcats. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Let's talk about Muise Tenura. All right, now, sometimes, and we've said this from day one, sometimes with certain players, you just know that you have to be able to you have to look at the offer list. You have to look at the type of teams that are involved, and you can generally go from there. And with Muise Tenura, that is the type. You got a bunch of top 25 schools that offered him, and obviously there's a lot of reasons to like this player. First of all, the thing that I think that you really like about him is that he's bigger. He fits into this mold where he's about 6'3", 200 and about 200 pounds. Not necessarily a burner yet, but he's also fast enough. He is more than fast enough, and I think that's something that makes him very, very intriguing. Now, the other thing that I think when we look at it is that he's a player that when you watch him, it's easy to see him kind of fitting in there and fitting into that new template that the coaching staff is looking for. This coaching staff is clearly looking for two things. It's looking to recruit Texas, and it's looking to get bigger wide receivers to kind of fit into that T-Mac type mold. Now, again, is this guy T-Mac? No. But who is T-Mac? So again, that is also that's something that you got to keep in mind. Watching him, though, there's a variety of reasons, though. He can high point the ball, he can run, and I can tell you from behind the scenes that this coaching staff views him as possibly being the most talented player in the entire class. Yes, I know that that's saying a lot, but yes, that's what it is. And again, when you're dealing with kids, when you're dealing with 3-star players, that you want to make sure that they have good offers, that they have a good offer list, that is an offer list that are committable, and he had a ton of those. So where does he exactly fit in? It's going to be fascinating. I do think that he is a player that will be able to play pretty much immediately. Some of these other guys, you got to remember, are you're still trying to figure out what positions exactly, or they are transitioning from other positions. Like, a Sean Robinson, perfect example. And some other players as well, a little bit on the shorter side, Muise out of Florida, but that doesn't mean they can't play, obviously. This kid is ready to rock and roll. This kid is ready to go right now. And he probably, if he was in a different state, he probably would have been a 4-star, mid 4-star player because, again, it's easy to kind of get lost in Texas. I get all of that. But watching him, it's easy to see why this coaching staff has really honed in on him. He's fantastic. Like I said, watching him, this kid is going to be problems. This kid's going to be problems for a lot of different teams. And it just goes again to show you that this U of A coaching staff, they know exactly what they're doing. They are able to get the right players, and they're able to get fits. And I think next year you're probably going to look at kids that might be a little bit more highly rated, especially if Arizona has some success, which I certainly assume that they are going to do. But watching them right now, I do think we're kind of in the stage where, you're going to need some guys that are physically ready to make an instant impact. And I think this is absolutely one of those players. Again, a very, very nice get for the University of Arizona. And again, you're looking at Texas, and this is something where Alonzo Carter has to really be kind of licking his chops, knowing that, man, I can continue to get into Texas, not only in Texas, but I can continue to get really good players out of there. And again, and word of mouth spreads. If you're a good player and you come to the U of A and you have a good opportunity and you play well, it's going to spread around a lot. And there's listen, with T-Mac moving on, there's going to be some other opportunities here. Montana Lamonius Craig, we already know about him. We know that he's good, but you also know that he's going to be moving on. I don't know how good Montana is, but he's certainly a player that merits playing time by this coaching staff and previous coaching staff. So there is definitely that. And Malachi Riley is the one guy that I think is he's going to play a lot. He'll be returning, looking at maybe a Raymelo Murphy, but they're going to have to replenish that wide receiving core, and this does exactly that. You put him in there with another player, a Gio Richardson, who also is just a guy that I think is going to really take off. And again, got to be pretty happy with that coaching staff and just what they've been able to do. None of these guys are the proverbial OKGs. And what I mean by that is I don't necessarily go by rankings. What I go by is, how are you viewed and what are the schools that you're beating out players for? And Arizona's been able to beat out good schools for these players. Again, this isn't a ULL Monroe. This isn't a ULL Lafayette where we've got to pretend that Arizona beat out some really good schools. These are big name schools, and again, Tenkara fits right into that. So I'm kind of at the point now where watching this, we just know that this is a coaching staff that gets it. Not only do they get it, they understand that what the positions that they need to overhaul, and they've done a very good job with that. They've done a very, very good job at that, and I'm excited to see what exactly that next step is. And if that next step is that you continue to hop in there, and I think we're kind of at the stage now where you do know that Arizona is in a really, really good spot. I'm excited to see exactly where Arizona is with this. So what is that next position then? That next position is where else are you? Because you've got the running back position settled. You got the wide receiver position settled. What is that next position? And I think with that next position, you're probably looking at continuing to try to bulk up on the defensive side of the football. I think you're obviously with the corners. I think that I think you also know that there is a absolutely good opportunity for Arizona to be able to get some dudes that are, some dudes that are going to have to be able to compete immediately. You look at that cornerback spot, you got Marquise Killebrew. I expect him to probably be that other corner. I don't know that Freeney's that guy, but those other 4 or 5 spots, you do think that you do look at it and you do think that there's probably going to be some real potential for Arizona to kind of load up on that class. But that's kind of where we're at, though. I think the wide receiver, I think you're done at this point. I think you've got the players that you needed. Now you got to continue to kind of bolster that next step. You bolster that next step. I think that Arizona is going to be in a very good spot. And again, this coaching staff has done a very good job of assessing the strengths and the weaknesses of this team. I think they knew that there was going to be the wide receiver spot, that there was going to be you'd had to be able to replenish stuff. You knew that obviously at running back, done. You knew that you had to get your quarterback of the future, done. And you also knew that you had to continue to try to figure out that other Arizona offensive line position. Done. Now it's getting to the corners. Now it's getting linebackers. Now it's getting edge rushers. And, they know that. I know that. You all know that. And that's why this is going to be a fun thing to watch unfold and how this all goes. Now, we're going to talk about the Arizona football schedule coming up next, because there is money to be had, my friends, money to be had. And the one thing I think that with this coaching staff, you also got to be super excited about is I think they know that. They know that there's a lot of pressure on them. And the great thing about it is I think that they are here for it. But another people that know that they are here for it is eBay Motors. eBay Motors, my friends. Check out eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Here's the deal with eBay Motors. You look at eBay Motors and you know that you can cut out the middleman, and not only cut out the middleman, you know that what you're getting from eBay Motors is going to be solid stuff. Then you take it to somebody you trust. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Again, check it out. eBay Motors, my friend. eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time. And again, the great thing is, you know that you're kind of at the stage now where with eBay Motors, they've got a good reputation. Take it to somebody that you can absolutely trust. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's get to some Arizona football. Let's get to where you watched it and you're like, all right, why isn't Arizona football a little bit more highly thought of at this point? And I think that is a very good question. Now, we need to look backwards a little bit and also understand that Vegas has been behind Arizona. They just have. And I think with Vegas, listen, they're about making money. I get all that. But whatever the lines have been at, they've been too low for Arizona. And I think the other thing is, not only have they been a little bit too low, you also know that Vegas is just kind of behind on Arizona. 2.5 wins before, not again, that wasn't high enough. And 5 wins, obviously not high enough as well. And then you look this year, 7.5. I just think that 7.5 is too low as well. So again, check that one out. But we're going to kind of go through their schedule. We're going to kind of go through the U of A schedule and just kind of talk about where everything is in the grand scheme of things. And I think that right now, the first thing you got to look at is the over/under. Again, you're looking at 7.5 wins. 7.5 wins, all kinds of. I think that's all kinds of easy. You got Arizona, New Mexico. So Arizona, New Mexico is. I expect Arizona to destroy New Mexico. Then you got Arizona, Northern Arizona. Arizona should destroy Northern Arizona as well. Then it gets fascinating. Then it gets interesting. I think with this class, and some of the players that are back. I like Arizona to win one of these next 2 games. Arizona against Kansas State or Arizona at Utah. Now, listen, this is a brutal stretch. And yes, obviously there's a lot to look at and say, yikes. But I think Arizona is going to be able to win one of these 2 games. Kansas State obviously is a tough one. Avery Johnson, he's really, really good, at least in theory. I think but I still think that's going to be a tough one for Arizona to be able to win. But I do believe it'll be Arizona or Utah. One of those 2. I believe Arizona is going to win one of those 2 games. So that would put you at 3-1 right there. Okay, but you could also just say that Arizona is at 2-2. That's fine. Then you got Arizona. Then you got Texas Tech at Arizona. I like Arizona in that game. Then you got Arizona at BYU. BYU stinks. BYU is picked to finish amongst the worst teams in Power 5. So I'm going Arizona as well in that one, just because of the obvious. That. I think Arizona wins that game. So worst case scenario, I see you being 4-2 at that point. Then you got the 3-game stretch where you got Arizona, Colorado, Arizona, West Virginia, and Arizona, UCF. Let's just say it again. We're going to play this conservatively here, but let's just say that Arizona goes 2-3 or 2-1 in that. Then you're at 4-2. Then you're at 6-3. Okay, you're at 6-3 with 3 games remaining. You got Houston at Arizona, Arizona at TCU, Arizona State at Arizona. I think Arizona wins at least 2 of those games. So again, if you can find that at 7.5, we're going conservatively here. I think Arizona is going to be just fine. I like where they're at. And there's a variety of reasons. First, all these teams have questions. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, Arizona's got a lot of questions. Correct. They do have a lot of questions. I get that. So does every other team out there. But Arizona's got a couple different things going for them. And I think the first thing you got to look at with Arizona is, for a fact that you've got a great quarterback. You know that there's no reason that this quarterback shouldn't be that Noah Fifita shouldn't be really, really good. As we've said a bunch of times, if he's not really good, then I'm going to immediately look at the coaching staff, because Noah Fifita should be really good. There is no excuse for that for him not to be. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. Brent Brennan, maybe he's not, Bill Parcells, but I also think that I have a very hard time seeing him fall flat on his face. And with that, I mean that I don't see him falling flat on his face. He's got a long track record. Is he the most dynamic player or the most dynamic? Probably not. But at the same time, you also know that he's not going to stink. San Jose State is a difficult place to win games, and he was able to do just that. So there is that. Now, with the rest of this, the concerns. So offensively, I think they should be really, really good. And I think besides that, I think you also know that this is a staff that is going to probably get the most out of its players, and they're going to run the football. I look for this to be a physical team. I look for this to be a team that makes a lot of plays downfield and does a lot of different stuff. Again, I'm very bullish on offensively that this is going to be a team that's going to try to move the pile per se, and make things up and down, have things happen. Then defensively, I just don't see any way that they are going to stink. And again, maybe they're not going to be elite, but I don't see anywhere that they're going to stink. We've talked about the starting units ad nauseum, and there's a reason why. With the defense, the defensive line, that front four is going to be just fine. The starters, you got Darton, you got Chuba. You've also got a player in. I've also got a player in. Isaiah Johnson, Bear Anderson. They're going to be good. I don't love the edges, but that's also going to be on Dwayne Aquina to be able to figure out what exactly he can do. If he can do that, then I think that Arizona is going to be in really good shape. But overall, you get the point. I like the front four. I just think that you're going to have to be I think you're just going to have to be able to, how do I put this? Find kind of another, find a few more depth pieces on the edge. But after that, I do think you're good. Now, linebacker, I think, is a different animal, because you've got Jacob Manu, but you also know that you're probably going to have to get some other players in there as well, mainly because he is as good as he is. You also know that he is not a Jacob Manu is that one guy. He is super, super good, obviously, but you also know that there's really nothing next to him. And I don't know that there's anything that you feel good about with this roster saying that they're going to be really good. That's something that I think if you're Arizona, you've got to be able to figure out. Now, with this squad, that's going to be up to Dwayne Aquina though, and I think he's got a good track record. Obviously, he's got a good track record with the defensive backs, and I think that's the next step is for the defensive backs. I think that you've got to be able to put. How do I put this? You've got to be able to have guys that are going to be able to play closer to the line of scrimmage. And I think when I say that, I mean two players. I mean Genesis Smith and I mean Owen Goss, because at the back end, you're going to have a couple guys in Dalton Johnson and Gunnar Maldonado that are going to be quarterbacking, patrolling the back end of that secondary. And, Gunnar will obviously be a little bit closer, but I could see Genesis being that one dude that is playing a lot closer to the line of scrimmage, and you're probably going to feel pretty good about what he can do. And that's where I'm at with Arizona. But overall, the defense should be good. The offense, I think, should be dynamic. I'm a big fan of this. I love, obviously, having Tyler Loop. Love having him as well. I think that, a lot of people are just missing the boat on this squad, and I think that's continuing to be the case. Now, what is a best case scenario? We're going to talk about that next. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats, and I am your host, Mike Luke. And all right, now let's talk about best case scenario. And I think best case scenario for Arizona is you're getting 10 or 11 wins. And I think there's reason to be optimistic that Arizona's going to be able to do that. A big reason why is the offense and the defense and the coaching staff. And you look at the schedule and there's nothing daunting. And here's what I keep going back to is that in years past, we know this is Arizona fans. In years past, there were times where you're just like, you're looking at the schedule and you're like, there's a loss, there's a loss, there's a loss, there's a loss, there's a loss. We've all been through it. We all seen it. We all know the drill. We've been through it many, many times. There really aren't those anymore. And, that's a testament, as much as I hate to say it, that is a testament to Jedd Fisch and, some of this talent that he was able to put on this roster. And it's going to be up to Brent Brennan to keep this one going. But I don't look at any game that Arizona can't win. When I look at this roster, I'm like, okay, well, there's every reason to say that Arizona could win every single one of these games. And I do think that there's a good chance that this is a team that could be in the college football playoffs. And I think we're going to know a lot more after that, obviously that first month, as to where this team is, where everything is. But this is a team that I think its upside is multiple 10 or multiple 10, 11 wins somewhere in there. I think there's every bit that capability of being in there, and Arizona, I think, is got a really good chance of that. The downside is that somebody gets injured. Now, if somebody gets injured, that obviously takes but that's the way it is for any team. If Noah Fifita gets injured, well, then guess what? Arizona's probably not going to be as good. I get all of that, but this is a guy that's never really been injured in his life. If he stays healthy, then bare minimum, I expect this team to be very, very good. And again, take the over. We keep going with that. Keep telling people, tell your friends, take the over. Because, again, Vegas is still behind on Arizona. You can continue to hit that one. I think anything short of 9 wins this season, I think, would be a disappointment. I look at this roster. I look at the players, and you got to be able to capitalize now. I look for this team, and I think that they're going to be able to capitalize on this now. But a very good weekend for Arizona. Obviously, getting Muise Tenura, good player, big, strong, physical, and I expect him to be able to compete immediately for a starting spot for a position. I expect him to be able to do just that. He's that type of dude. And if he were going to be in the NFL in 3 or 4 years, I don't think that anybody should be surprised. Like I said, I look for him to be the player in this entire class that is going to be the most ready to make an immediate impact at the wide receiver spot. Him, Richardson, Shelton, Robinson. There's just a lot to like about this class and receivers. And that's, again, big time kudos to this coaching staff for being able to put that one together. A salute emoji, as the kids would say, even though they don't say that. Now, tomorrow we're going to be talking a little bit more. We're going to talk about quarterback rankings in the Big 12 and quarterback coaching rankings in the Big 12, and just kind of where Arizona is in everything. I do think that Arizona quarterback-wise is in a very good spot. Coaching-wise, it's a little bit, obviously there's a little bit of unknowns, but I have a hard time seeing Arizona fall flat on its face. But on that note, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Great time to be an Arizona Wildcat fan, my friends, because there's all kinds of really good stuff going on. This coaching staff is killing it in recruiting, and we got a top 25 team, and there should be high expectations for this. But tomorrow, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about some QB rankings. Then the following day, we're going to talk about some coaching rankings as well. Have a great rest of your day. Bear down, back the A, and thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.